The class field trip had nearly 50 participants. They set up camp on a clearing at the foot of a cliff near a dense forest. All afternoon, while helping with the tents, Harvey kept an eye on her surroundings. But nothing about this place resembled the forest from her dreams. That evening, everyone gathered around a bonfire, grilling meat, singing, and playing traditional games. Harvey was still inside her tent, tidying up, while her friends had already gone outside. She lifted the tent flap to step out, just about to join the others at the fire, when she suddenly heard someone calling her name from behind. Harvey. She turned around. There was no one, just the standing tent. Harvey. The voice came again. She was sure she hadn't imagined it. There were two different voices, yet both carried a strange similarity, as if they were whispering right next to her ear. Harvey. This time, she heard it clearly. The voice was coming from the right, from inside the forest. Harvey hesitated for a moment, but for some reason decided to follow the voice. She stepped onto a narrow path leading into the woods. The whispering of her name stopped, but ahead of her, a scream echoed. A shrill, piercing and heart-wrenching scream that grew louder with each step. As she ventured deeper, the trees became darker, and the eerie atmosphere grew heavier. The bright moonlight filtered through the leaves, illuminating the path just enough for her to see. The once piercing scream shifted into a mournful wail, a sound so sorrowful and chilling that it clawed at the very soul. A shiver ran through Harvey's body, but she carefully pressed forward until she suddenly froze. The wailing. It was right behind her, and it was very close. She could even feel the cold breath against the nape of her neck. Her heart momentarily stopped before pounding violently, threatening to burst from her chest. Gathering every ounce of courage, she bit her lip, turned around, and the wailing stopped completely. Instead, on the ground before her, there was a girl. The girl sat on the thick bed of fallen leaves, hugging her knees to her chest. Her long black hair cascaded over her face, completely obscuring her features. An eerie chill radiated from her, causing Harvey to instinctively take a step back. A flash of lightning streaked across the sky, making Harvey's heart clench. In that fleeting moment, she saw them, a pair of eyes. Glowing white, they were wide open to the extreme, devoid of pupils, surrounded by deep, festering red with veins of dark blood oozing down. In the next instant, the girl slowly lifted her head. Her tangled hair parted, revealing a ghastly pale, desiccated face. Her eye sockets were vast and hollow, leaking black blood that dripped steadily onto the ground, forming an eerie drip, drip, drip. Harvey's entire body trembled. She instinctively stepped back. The girl pressed her palms against the thick bed of leaves and crawled toward her. The blood continued to drip from her eyes. Harvey let out a blood-curdling scream and turned to flee, sprinting blindly into the darkness. Panic consumed her. She ran until she tripped, crashing onto the ground. But strangely, she felt no pain. The thick layer of leaves had cushioned her fall. Gasping for breath, she steadied herself and slowly got up. She was strong. She had to be, but her legs continued to tremble uncontrollably. Then something caught her attention. Right in front of her stood an old milestone, just like the one in the photograph, with a backward-facing arrow. This time the number was 1152. Could she be trapped in her dream? Was this still a dream? She turned to leave, but her steps felt wrong. With every step she took toward the exit, the forest of death expanded, swallowing more of the natural world behind her. She was trapped. She stood frozen beside a large tree, surrounded by suffocating darkness. Her phone, the only source of light, suddenly flickered and died. Terror washed over her. Her hands trembled as she frantically pressed the power button, but the device remained unresponsive. Then, a sound, a tiny bell ringing. She turned her head slowly, her heart pounding. There it was, a silver anklet with a small, glistening bell, and the anklet was worn by a pale, lifeless foot, dangling right in front of her face. "Ah!" Harvey screamed, as the corpse, hanging from the tree, suddenly fell forward, its hair cascading like a black curtain, revealing its terrifying, decayed face. But before she could see it clearly, a voice called out to her, a deep, familiar voice. "Close your eyes. Don't run that way." A cold but comforting hand grabbed hers and pulled her into the darkness, and for the first time, she saw his face, the man from her dreams. He was silent. "Then I won't go." "No." He pressed her head against his chest. "You must go. If you stay here, they will get the key and begin to spread chaos, harming the human world. This forest has been a prison for demons and spirits for thousands of years. He cannot escape, but he has gathered thousands of ghosts here. We cannot let them return. But what about you? Don't worry, I am already a spirit. What else can happen to me? If you don't leave, we will never be able to see each other again." The eerie sounds around them still echoed, but his cold embrace gave her a strange sense of peace, lulling her into sleep. In her dream, the familiar scenery unfolded again, the same darkened forest, but this time it was no longer silent. As always, he appeared from behind her, but this time, when she turned around, she could finally see his face clearly, and for the first time, she saw him smile. That smile she would probably never forget. "Take me to your home," he spoke, his deep, familiar voice resonating. She smiled, thinking he was asking her to take him away from this strange world, so that they could be together forever. She reached out and took his hand. "Yes, we will go home. We will leave this place. No, there's no time left. You have to dream again." Before she could react, he covered her eyes with the one hand and pulled her into his embrace with the other. This time, his touch was not only peaceful, but also warm. She quickly drifted back into sleep. It must have only been a few seconds. When Harvey opened her eyes again, she was back in her small, warm room.